Chapter 424, Soul and Spirit 2. The moment the alchemy that unites the soul and spirit falls into his hands, you will never be able to escape his grasp, even before you can settle your 100-year grudge. Chong Ryong's expression hardened at the Heaven and Earth Society leader's meaningful words. What the hell is he talking about? Alchemy that unites the soul and spirit? What on earth does that mean? Her mind became confused and she was at a loss for words. She stared blankly at the Heaven and Earth Society leader before her eyes widened and she spoke. What's with that wench? That wench. She meant Wai So-yun, the Heaven and Earth Society leader's youngest disciple. She had found it strange how eerily similar the girl looked to herself. Come to think of it, that wasn't the only strange thing. Chong Ryong recalled how she had attempted to possess her, only to nearly have her spirit body forcibly trapped in that body. Her voice rose. What is this? Why does that wench look like me? I don't know the exact principles either, but if the records are correct, Wai So-yun was born from your soul. Chong Ryong was confused by those words. Wai So-yun is her soul. What the hell does that mean? As far as she knew, the soul and spirit were one. Just then someone's voice was heard. I'll explain that. Chong Ryong and the Heaven and Earth Society leaders' gazes turned in that direction. There stood a man with a terribly burned face and no eyes, leaning on a cane. Seeing the man with the cane, the Heaven and Earth Society leader spoke with a wary look in his eyes. You are. He clearly remembered him as someone from the Elder Council. However, Chong Ryong, who had been with Mok Jae-eun, knew his true identity. Grand Divination Master Myung-ryul. Grand Divination Master Myung-ryul? That mortal's true identity. He's one of the 6 direction gods and a follower of Three Eyes, No by Yong-hyun. Though not anymore, of course. 6 direction gods? The 6 direction gods. They were the 6 gods considered the pinnacle of diviners. Grand Divination Master Myung-ryul was one of the 6 direction gods and had been following 3-. However, after being defeated by Mok Jae-eun and revealing information, he almost died due to a prohibition left by Three Eyes. But he swore loyalty to Mok Jae-eun to survive. Grand Divination Master Myung-ryul spoke as he walked over, leaning on his cane. Both the soul and spirit can be considered spirits. Spirits? The reason they're divided into 2 is because spirits can be divided into 2 types of essence. 2 types of essence? The soul ascends to heaven for reincarnation and then descends again. On the other hand, the spirit is both an essence and the residual thoughts accumulated through life, as well as the remnants of the physical body. Conversely, the spirit should return to the earth, but because it's an essence born from that life, it remains even after death while the physical body decays. If it harbors strong resentment during this period, it becomes a ghost. That's what we call a vengeful spirit or ghost. I don't not know that. To Chong Ryong's words, Grand Divination Master Myung-ryul waved his hand lightly as if to calm her and said, Of course. But this is where it gets important. What are you talking about? Even though the spirit is an essence accumulated through the physical body, it's also an element that forms the spirit. The soul is yang that rises to heaven, and the spirit is yin that returns to earth. The soul and spirit that have gone to heaven and earth meet again when the time comes and are reborn anew. This is what Taoism and Buddhism call reincarnation. One is born, dies, and is born again. This is called reincarnation. It could be said to be the providence and natural order that sustains the world. Grand Divination Master Myung-ryul nodded and continued speaking. That's right. Reincarnation. However, as I just mentioned, reincarnation can only occur when both the soul and spirit are present. For instance, if the soul attains enlightenment and reaches nirvana, or if the spirit is trapped by resentment and becomes a ghost without returning to the earth, they can't meet again and thus can't reincarnate. But what about that Wai So-yun? It's exactly as the society leader said. Exactly as he said? You just said with your own mouth that the soul and spirit must come together for reincarnation. Yes, that's how it should be. But Mok-gon broke that law. Broke the law? Originally, the soul would be purified through the process of ascending to heaven and passing through the celestial gate. However, Mok-gon separated your soul and spirit and kept them captive. Is that even possible? It's nearly impossible, but he has existed for ages, changing countless bodies, so his knowledge is close to that of an immortal. This was the reason Grand Divination Master Myongryul followed him. Myongryul wanted to obtain his vast knowledge to cure his burns and eyes that couldn't be healed due to a curse, and to surpass his limits as a diviner. So you're saying that mortal wench Hwai So-yun is a physical body born from my soul that Bai Yonghyun captured and kept? That's correct. But even if he captured the soul without the spirit, because it's incomplete, it's difficult for the physical body to maintain itself. From what I've heard, the bodies containing your soul born through various wombs couldn't even last a few years. Gur. Chong Ryong gritted her teeth at Grand Divination Master Myongryul's words. Her anger surged to the point where her teeth chattered. Not only did he imprison her vengeful spirit for nearly 100 years, but he also held on to her soul that should have ascended to heaven and did such a thing? No matter how obsessed he was with her, this was beyond excessive. So that wench Hwai So-yun succeeded in forming a physical body without the spirit? Complete success is impossible. What do you mean by that? From the beginning, the soul, spirit, and reincarnation are literally the providence that forms the world itself. How could even a being with vast knowledge arbitrarily achieve such a natural order? Meaning? The physical body of Hwai So-yun is also incomplete. That's why a body with only a soul can't continue to endure and tries to crumble. At these words, the Heaven and Earth Society leader muttered in an angry voice. Heavenly Een severed meridians. That's right. That phenomenon can also be said to have occurred because the physical body couldn't endure. The Heaven and Earth Society leader had thought that Heavenly Een severed meridians was just her innate affliction. However, after learning the truth, he realized it wasn't so. Even though she was born from the best womb, Hwai So-yun's body was in an incomplete state without the spirit, so to compensate for the lack of Een energy, her body itself endlessly generated and went berserk trying to fill it. Crazy bastard. A harsh curse spilled from Chong Ryong's lips. Though she hated him, his madness was truly abhorrent. Although the soul and spirit were separated, wasn't the soul still essentially herself? To capture her soul and forcibly make it be born repeatedly, only to die each time. His obsession was the worst itself. Did he revive a body with just the soul out of obsession for me? You would know that better than I do. Obsession. Suddenly, Chong Ryong found something incomprehensible. If he was so obsessed with her that he would create a new body with just the soul, why did he seal away the spirit separately? I don't understand. If he had such remarkable abilities, wouldn't it have been better to reincarnate me from the beginning without separating the soul and spirit? Wouldn't that have fulfilled his desires? To her question, Grand Divination Master Myongryul shook his head and answered. Of course that would be true. But as I mentioned earlier, because the spirit is made up of residual thoughts from the physical body, it becomes a ghost if filled with resentment. In that case, it can't unite with the soul, which can be considered yang. Then couldn't he have resolved my resentment by sacrificing himself? It's not a problem that can be approached so simply. Sacrificing oneself was tantamount to suicide. Even if he achieved reincarnation as desired, he wouldn't obtain what he wanted. And there is one thing I'm curious about. Grand Divination Master Myongryul also had one doubt here. Although he didn't know exactly what happened at that time, did Mokgon really not know this principle that a spirit full of resentment and a soul couldn't become one over 100 years ago? If he knew this principle, was there any need to take everything away from her and fill her with resentment? Perhaps this is Mokgon's way of Bai Yonghyun. At that moment, Chong Ryong looked at the Heaven and Earth Society leader and spoke. You just said that a spirit full of resentment that becomes a ghost can't become one with the soul. But what is this alchemy that unites the soul and spirit? It's exactly as it sounds. He has been searching for alchemy that forcibly unites the soul and spirit for a long time. Don't tell me the reason is. That's right. It's to make you, the spirit full of resentment, and Hwai So-yun, the soul that formed a physical body, become one. Ha! Chong Ryong sneered. The very person who turned her into a vengeful spirit now wants to forcibly unite her soul and spirit to revive her to fulfill his obsession? Foolish bastard. Does he think I'll do as he wishes just because he revives me like that? If one masters the alchemy to handle the soul and spirit, one can freely manipulate the residual thoughts contained within them as well. The Heaven and Earth Society leader agreed with Grand Divination Master Myongryul's words and said, it was written that way in the records as well. What? It says that everything will be resolved if the parts of the residual thoughts in your spirit that are full of resentment and unnecessary memories are blown away. At these words, Chong Ryong's expression hardened. All this time, while burning with resentment, she had wondered why he had imprisoned her in a secret manual made of heart. But now all those questions were answered. Even after 100 years, he hadn't let go of his obsession with her. For the sake of merely possessing her, because of such severe obsession and madness, he took away all of her clan and everything she loved? By Hien Grolul. As her killing intent materialized, the surroundings rippled with an even deeper purple hue. It was gradually darkening beyond purple. Flinch. This can't be. They say that the spirit energy of a vengeful spirit depends on how long it has existed or how strong its resentment is. But as her spirit energy rose terrifyingly, Grand Divination Master Myongryul couldn't help but be inwardly surprised and stick out his tongue. Though unintended, her hatred after learning the whole truth seemed to have dug even deeper, almost to the point of the abyss. But strangely, this wasn't all. Flutter, flutter, flutter. Although he couldn't see, his senses were extremely developed and he used his main power to substitute for this, so he could feel the connection linked to Chong Ryong's spirit body trembling strongly. For some unknown reason, Grand Divination Master Myongryul furrowed his brow at this sight he had never seen before. But at that very moment, crack, the connection that looked like a red thread linked to her suddenly broke. A connection as close to the providence that links spirit mediums and diviners. But for it to break? How? In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were covered in blood. It happened so suddenly that Grand Divination Master Myongryul couldn't hide his bewilderment. How could the ghost domain be formed so quickly? As he was greatly surprised, bang! His body flew backwards and hit the wall, becoming fixed in place as if someone had grabbed him. Kook. He wasn't the only one who flew back. Bang. Cough, cough. Although he had severe internal injuries due to the prohibition, even the Heaven and Earth Society leader, who had reached the profound realm beyond the wall of Qi, couldn't properly control his body against her tremendous spirit energy. Despite drawing up his Qi, he was barely managing not to be pushed back. Chong Ryong spoke in a chilling voice overflowing with ghost energy. Tell me, where's he? I don't know. If you don't tell me, I'll start by killing your disciples and then everything alive remaining in the Heaven and Earth Society. Swish. Blood rose up and wrapped around his entire body, tightening strongly. Despite the pain, the society leader endured it and spoke. Haha. I really don't know. But there is a way to draw him out. Ryu Soul, don't you know it too? Speak. The ghost blade found traces of alchemy that can forcibly unite the soul and spirit. Grand Divination Master Myongryul's ears trembled at the society leader's words. He knew that even the soul transfer technique, the forbidden art he had barely found, was derived from a treasure left behind by an evil person called a Calamity in the time of the Old Murim. Did they find the treasure of Wicked Heart Granny? Chapter 425, Soul and Spirit 3. Western Shaanxi Province, southern part of Xing County. A strange war was taking place around a huge estate there. It wasn't a fight between people, that is, between humans and humans. On one side were martial artists, and on the other were beings with bizarre forms that were neither beasts nor humans. They were called anomalies or demons. There were various kinds of anomalies, such as those that spewed poisonous mist from their mouths, moved with agile body movements as if using internal cultivation, and tore bodies apart with long claws. Although they were beings that seemed terrifying just to look at, the human side, that is, the martial artists, were not overwhelmed by them at all, but rather were pushing them back with overwhelming force. Their numbers alone seemed to be as many as 2,000. Flags were raised here and there on the martial artist side, which gave an indication of what group they were. Evil Alliance. Second Alliance Leader. Fifth Alliance Leader. Sixth Alliance Leader. The Evil Alliance. It was one of the three powers dividing the current martial world, formed by the remnants of the old martial world and the evil sects of the current martial world. 3 of the alliance leaders of this evil alliance participated in this war. They were Second Alliance Leader He Yokwon, the Invincible Golden Body, Fifth Alliance Leader Yu Jiayong, the Azura Destruction Blade, and Sixth Alliance Leader Gwi Saman, the Evil Tranquil Sword. Among them, Second Alliance Leader He Yokwon was also one of the 8 stars, considered the highest masters of the current martial world. How did such formidable supreme masters of the Evil Alliance end up fighting these demons? It was for the sake of a single person. Swoosh. Waya. It's the true blood golden body. The martial artists of the Evil Alliance cheered at the sight of a middle-aged man with a large build, his muscles swelling with a brown hue and steam erupting from his entire body. Humph. Bang. The middle-aged man kicked off the ground, launching his body to strike down with both fists on the head of a huge demon that looked like a mix between a tiger and a wild boar. The demon's head shattered, its chin hitting the ground as it collapsed. Kuhuhi. Just big in size. Not much else. The name of this muscular middle-aged man with an unkempt beard was Hei Yokwon. He was one of the main pillars of the Evil Alliance, worthy of receiving the title of one of the 8 stars. At that moment, a demon with agile movements rushed at Hei Yokwon's back as he was laughing. Just then, swish 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 swish. Someone flew in, unfolding sword techniques like flashes of light with both hands, slicing another demon's body into dozens of pieces. Thud 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 thud. Don't let your guard down, Alliance leader Hei. I knew you'd save me. Yu Jiang. You sure talk well. The long-haired man who smirked, holding swords in both hands, was Yu Jiang, the 5th Alliance leader of the Evil Alliance, known as the Azura Destruction Blade. These two men had one thing in common. They were both from the Old Blood sect, which had been the most powerful force in the old martial world. Rustle rustle. Pack 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 pack. Hook. What is this? Just then tree roots near them suddenly elongated, binding the bodies of the Evil Alliance martial artists so they couldn't move. The martial artists were bewildered and tried to break free, but the tree roots kept rising and wrapping around them even more. Seeing this, Yu Jiang clicked his tongue. Huh. Seems like this is some kind of sorcery too. Pat. Swish. 5th Alliance leader Yu Jiang flew towards the tree that could be considered the center of the roots and cut it down. As the large old tree lost its strength and fell, Yu Jiang, just in case, used the 3 realms true fire technique to burn the tree. Whoosh. The tree, which had been moving its roots as if alive, shook violently as if in pain while burning. How bizarre. Damn it. Yu Jiang turned his head towards the direction of the estate where a voice was heard. There he saw diviners holding talismans and forming hand seals. I thought it would be an easy fight, but it's turning out to be quite troublesome. He had wondered why they had been asked for help just to fight a group of diviners. But now that he was actually facing them, they were clearly different from ordinary diviners. They truly lived up to their reputation as a group led by one of the top 6 diviners among the 64 divination halls. They controlled demons stronger than average martial artists as spirit mediums and used bizarre sorceries to give the martial artists a hard time. Of course, there were monsters on this side that even these demons and diviners couldn't touch. Quahahaha. Crunch. Hei Yokwon broke the 2 horns of a red bull-shaped demon charging at him. Not content with that, he lifted it up and threw it backwards. Bang. 2nd Alliance leader Hei Yokwon was this type of monster. Martial artists called him the Invincible Golden Body because he became virtually invincible when he unleashed his True Blood Golden Body, a unique chi cultivation method. Although the era of the old martial world was forgotten by everyone after the day of the Great Calamity, the Hai family was said to have produced the world's strongest fighter in the past, making them a renowned martial arts family. Swish swish swish. Of course he was no pushover either. 5th Alliance leader Yu Jiang, who had turned one of the demons into pieces of meat, spoke to Hei Yokwon in a low voice. It's been almost half an hour since the young lady infiltrated, but there's still no news. It's worrying. To his concern, 2nd Alliance leader Hai replied with a laugh. Kuhi. Don't worry. It's not just anyone, but that person who could be called a legend of the Old Blood sect, along with the 6th Alliance leader, the evil Tranquil Sword. That's true, but it was taking longer than expected. They had been holding off the diviner group's forces for over half an hour, yet there was still no news. It was impossible not to worry. Even though they went in as an elite few, 3 supreme masters had entered. If they hadn't been able to subdue them yet, it seems that diviner who received the title of one of the 6 direction gods was no ordinary being. 5th Alliance leader Yu Jiang looked at the main hall of the estate. Spiritual Word True Origin Pavilion. Spiritual Word True Origin Pavilion. Cough. A middle-aged man wearing golden diviner robes, with a sword piercing his abdomen, was coughing up blood. The identity of this middle-aged man was Ji Jinmun, the pavilion master of this spiritual word True Origin Pavilion and a diviner who had received the title of one of the 6 direction gods. How did one of the 6 best diviners end up in this state? Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun, who had been coughing and spitting blood for a while, painfully raised his head to look at someone's back. That someone was a woman in embroidered uniform guard attire with a red vest and golden belt. The identity of this beautiful embroidered uniform guard woman, whose clothes were stained with blood here and there, was none other than So Yirin, the 6 office's commander. Suk. Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun tried to slightly move his middle finger. At that moment, swish. Qua arg. Ji Jinmun's middle finger was cut off. The one who cut it was a woman with long nails and a seductive appearance, who was Dam Bekha of the Blood Saint from the Old Blood sect. Dam Bekha warned Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun in a voice filled with killing intent. If you move even a single finger, I'll kill you regardless of the young lady's orders. Ku. You vicious thing. If you understand, stay still. The reason Blood Saint Dam Bekha was so wary of him was simple. Though they had infiltrated this place to subdue him secretly, they encountered difficulties. They thought they could easily subdue him if they didn't give him a chance to use sorcery or spells, no matter how godly a diviner he was said to be. However, the title of one of the 6 direction gods was indeed not given for nothing. We cut off one of his arms in a surprise attack, yet we barely managed to subdue him. He was strong enough to make one marvel. They thought spells could only be cast by chanting incantations or using talismans, but this man cast spells so quickly there was almost no opening, giving them a hard time. Even though he had prepared spells to be cast at any time, his skills truly matched his reputation. Humph. And thanks to an unexpected spy they almost had a big problem. It was because of the person who had infiltrated with them. There was a corpse on the floor not only burned all over by lightning chi but also cut in half. This corpse was Gwi Saman, the 6th alliance leader of the Evil Alliance, known as the Evil Tranquil Sword. Looking at this, Dam Bekha clicked her tongue. If I hadn't been behind, the young lady would have been in danger. In the moment So Yirin pierced Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun's abdomen with a swift thrust, Gwi Saman suddenly tried to behead her. She blocked him by raising lightning chi. What are you doing? Kook. Having failed to kill her, Gwi Saman, even as he was being burned by the lightning chi, then tried to kill the subdued and immobilized Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun, as if trying to silence him. However, So Yirin, who had raised sword chi on her sword in that instant, ducked in and sliced his waist, resolving the situation. What's going on? Although the Evil Alliance was formed by gathering numerous evil sects, how could there be a spy hidden among its executives? Could have been a big problem. It seems that when this matter is concluded, she should tell Second Alliance leader He Yokwon to conduct a large-scale spy hunt. Blood Saint Dam Bekha, who was keeping her eyes on Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun, glanced at So Yirin. She was examining documents in a hidden safe. But something about the atmosphere felt strange. Young lady. Why is she focusing on that so intently, holding her breath? As she wondered, Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun spoke. Fuff. I'm sure I told you. Nothing will change even if you look at that. Meanwhile, So Yirin, who had been intensely focused on the documents, turned around and approached Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun with them in hand. Then she spoke in an angry voice. You know, what does the secret society intend to do with this? To her question, Ji Jinmun laughed while coughing up blood. Fuff. Kuhahihi. Well, I told you that knowing won't change anything. Puke. Crunch. Cupe. At that moment, So Yirin twisted the sword stuck in his abdomen. The pain of his internal organs being twisted and torn by the sword blade was indescribable. So Yirin glared at him fiercely and said, You think I'll let things go as you wish? It's not a matter of letting things go, or not. Even if your ancient ancestor were to be revived, you absolutely can't stop. Crack. At that moment, Pavilion Master Ji Jinmun's head exploded. So Yirin wiped her face with her sleeve, splattered with brain matter and blood. Then she quickly brought the document behind her back, which had almost been soaked in blood, and looked at it. On the old document paper was a map with several places marked in red. Among them, one place caught her eye. It was the northern part of Shaanxi province. After staring at this for a while, she spoke to Blood Saint Dam Bekha. I'm sorry, but may I ask you for a favor? How can you call it a favor? Please give me your orders. Thank you. Without the Blood Saint's help, it would have been difficult alone. Please don't say such things. This isn't just your matter. Bekha has also been waiting for the day to take bloody revenge on them. Dam Bekha showed fighting spirit filled with killing intent. She was also that excited about this matter. So Yiren, the 6 office's commander, handed over the document she was holding and said, "Please take this to young Master Mok Jiongun at the Heaven and Earth Society." This? But this is. I've memorized it in my head, so I don't need it anymore. Understood. Then are you returning to the Imperial Palace in Kaifeng? No. I think I need to go to Northern Shaanxi Province. Northern Shaanxi Province? Could it be? Before Dam Bekha could finish speaking, So Yiren answered with a bitter smile. Yes. It's my dear hometown. Around the same time at the Heaven and Earth Society. The society leader, forcibly held by Chong Ryong's spirit energy, spoke with difficulty. Haha. I really don't know. But there is a way to draw him out. Ryu Soul, don't you know it too? Speak. The Ghost Blade found traces of alchemy that can forcibly unite the soul and spirit. The Ghost Blade? Cough cough. That's right. At those words, Chong Ryong's expression, which had been uncontrolled by anger, became strange. Hadn't she been trying so hard to find him together with the mortal? But that wasn't important right now. Where is the Ghost Blade? To her question, the society leader said, the northern edge of Shaanxi Province, where there are ruins of a collapsed fortress. Chapter 426, Soul and Spirit 4. Is this all there is to him? Mok Jiongun sneered as he looked at Kong Yom, the first realm of the secret society, whose entire body had shriveled up and turned into a mummy-like state. He had absorbed all the energy within Kong Yom's body. He could immediately utilize the demonic energy that he had converted from the monster energy, but he isolated the fire energy, which was close to natural earth energy, that had coexisted in Kong Yom's body. How could he simultaneously possess such opposing energies? Mok Jiongun found this puzzling. If it was difficult even for him, this natural earth energy should have been the absolute antithesis for a demon like Kong Yom, yet it coexisted within his body. Still, since he possessed it, it was a high-purity energy that could be utilized in some way. Mok Jiongun removed his hand from Kong Yom's body, which had breathed its last after having all its internal energy sucked out. Then he recalled their final conversation. Yet human wench, if she's present, they said the sealed vengeful spirit could be revived. Revive a vengeful spirit? What do you mean? I don't know the details. But from what I've heard, both that wench and the vengeful spirit were originally supposed to be one. I'll tell you what I know, so please spare my life. If I deem it useful, I'll consider it. So what can you tell me? Finish what you were saying. What does it mean that they were originally one? That's all I know. That person said if that body and the vengeful spirit could become one, your wish would be fulfilled. Your wish would be fulfilled? What the hell does that mean? Is he trying to resurrect her by possessing Wai So-yun, who looks exactly like Chong Ryong with Chong Ryong's spirit? But isn't that just simple possession? Ah. Suddenly, Mok Jiongun remembered how Chong Ryong had attempted possession but failed. It was a strange phenomenon. What kind of existence is Wai So-yun to Chong Ryong for that to happen? Puzzled, Mok Jiongun thought for a moment and asked, does the premise, if they could become one, imply that there are other necessary conditions or that they can't easily become one? I know that some kind of sorcery condition is needed. It wasn't my assigned task, so I don't know the details. It wasn't my assigned task. This means that the necessary conditions haven't been met yet. If the conditions had been met from the beginning, he couldn't have talked like this. What 3 needs are 3 things. It seems it can be seen as Chong Ryong, Wai So-yun, and the sorcery to make them one. Mok Jiongun, with his unique insight, had organized the situation with limited information. All right. Then tell me where they're taking Wai So-yun. They'll take her to Mokgon. Then it's simple. Where's Mokgon? That place is a space hidden by sorcery, so unless that person sends a subordinate, even its location can't be known. At those words, Mok Jiongun sneered. Then you don't really know anything. Wait. Among the First Realm, Destruction Emperor and Ghost Blade have been around the longest, so I believe they know that person's exact location. Destruction Emperor Ghost Blade. Yes. Destruction Emperor is on a mission, so his location is unknown, but Ghost Blade is said to follow the Heaven and Earth Society leader, so you should be able to find out. I've told you everything I know, so please have mercy. Swoosh. W8 This is different from what you say. Q heck. Most of the information you know is abstract and requires an extra step. Even so, I don't feel it's worth sparing you for information that's not even proper. Swoosh. Kui. I'm not foolish enough to keep alive something that's better off dead. With that, Mok Jaeongun absorbed all the remaining energy in Kang Yom's body using the ritual of binding. My lord. At that moment, Sword Demon Jui approached him. He was inwardly marveling at Mok Jaeongun's actions. To him who had lived close to the middle path without leaning towards good or evil his entire life, every one of Mok Jaeongun's actions was shocking. Even though he begged so much to be spared, not only did he kill him but to do this to him. It was truly a cruel act. Is this the demonic nature he should learn? It seems it will take quite some time to adapt. Anyway, I apologize. You told me to save that young lady Wai Soyun, but because I was late. Flinch. At that moment, Mok Jaeongun looked at Joey and then turned his head somewhere else. My lord. Shudder. He was so taken aback that he unconsciously took a step back. This was because an immense killing intent suddenly arose from Mok Jaeongun, and it was so intense that it was overwhelming. Why suddenly like this? Pat. Just then Mok Jaeongun suddenly flew off somewhere. My lord. Why is he doing this? Leaving behind the puzzled Jui, Mok Jaeongun flew towards somewhere. The place he was urgently heading to was the main plaza of the Heaven and Earth Society. The reason for his hurry was that the connection, linking him to Chong Ryong, had suddenly broken. Chong Ryong. There was only one meaning to a perfectly fine spirit medium's connection breaking. It meant that she had ceased to exist. At this, Mok Jaeongun, whose mind became confused beyond anger in an instant, was heading to the last place he had sensed her. It was a building located right next to the main hall. As Mok Jaeongun, who thought something had happened to Chong Ryong, approached the place, he couldn't help but frown. This was because a terrifyingly ominous spirit energy was flowing out from the building. It was an extremely dense, dark ghost energy. Yet strangely this energy felt familiar. As he broke through towards the source. Bang! The place was covered in blood everywhere and he saw Chong Ryong grabbing someone's neck. That someone was none other than the society leader. What the hell is going on here? He had rushed here in one breath thinking something had gone wrong because the connection was cut, but not only was Chong Ryong fine, she was emitting an even more ominous and stronger spirit energy than before. At this level, it far surpassed when she had become a purple spirit. Chong Ryong. Though he didn't know why her connection had been cut and her spirit energy had increased so explosively, Mok Jaeongun felt he should stop Chong Ryong for now. Judging by her current momentum, it seemed she might snap the society leader's neck. Chong Ryong. I don't know what happened, but let's calm down for a moment. With me. At that moment, as Chong Ryong waved her hand, pang! Blood gushed from the floor, surging like a wave to engulf Mok Jaeongun. At this, Mok Jaeongun drew his demonic sword, Evil Commandment Sword, to cut through the blood wave. However, pong! Mok Jaeongun's sword, which was meant to cut through the blood wave, was instead repelled. As a result, his body was swept away by the wave. The blood. He knew her spirit energy had increased explosively, but he didn't expect it to repel even his intentional strike. Inwardly amazed, Mok Jaeongun seemed to think this wouldn't do so. Twack. He concentrated his power on the tip of his sword and pierced through the blood wave in one go. Pong. No matter how powerful the blood wave was, when he unified his power into a single point, a large hole was inevitably created. As he passed through this hole, Mok Jaeongun's eyes widened. The reason was crunch. She had snapped the neck of the Heaven and Earth Society leader, who had been muttering something with bloodshot eyes. The society leader, with his neck broken, lowered his head with a bitter look in his eyes, as if he had already accepted death. Seeing this, Mok Jaeongun's mind became complex in an instant. Even if he had decided to kill all of the Heaven Vane clan, it was premature to kill him when he hadn't properly found out anything from the society leader yet. Especially since he was somewhat related to his grandfather's death, and they needed to find out where 3 was hiding. Splash. The dead society leader's body fell into a pool of blood. Chong Ryong's eyes, as she turned her head, were seen to be dyed dark red without any white. How much anger does it take to become like that? Chong Ryong. Mortal. Why are you doing this? What has made Chong Ryong so? This is where our connection ends, mortal. With those cold and resolute words, Chong Ryong made a gesture of clenching her hand. Then the blood pooled on the floor rose up in the shape of a hand and grabbed something. It was none other than Grand Divination Master Myongryul. Myongryul was in a miserable state, unable to do anything with his jaw torn off and both arms severed. Seeing this, Mok Jae-eun felt he should stop her. Though it was difficult to guess the exact reason right away, there must be something behind her immediate attempt to kill these 2 people. Pat. Mok Jae-eun hurriedly raised his invisible sword. Twack. The incredibly sharp invisible sword cut off the wrist made of blood. Pew. But at that moment, countless blood thorns flew from all directions, piercing Grand Divination Master Myongryul's entire body. With his entire body pierced, Myongryul's life ended right there. Seeing this, Mok Jae-eun's gaze grew cold. Chong Ryong spoke to Mok Jae-eun. Now that the connection is severed, you can no longer constrain me. I will resolve my grudge myself. So, mortal, you should go live your own life now. It was a cold tone that seemed to imply she would cut not only the connection as a spirit medium but truly all connections. It wasn't just because there was nothing binding her anymore. Having learned the whole truth, Chong Ryong no longer wanted to drag Mok Jae-eun into Bai Yonghyun's obsession and madness. In truth, she was more anxious than angry. She was afraid that if she went deeper, something might go wrong and even Mok Jae-eun might walk into danger. So she felt she had to settle this herself. After all, she was the origin of all this. I'm sorry, mortal. Swish. Then all the blood in this space swirled around Chong Ryong, threatening to engulf her. She intended to disappear while protecting herself with blood like this. As her resentment deepened and surpassed its limits, she thought that now even Mok Jae-eun wouldn't be able to stop her easily. It was at that very moment. Twack. The blood whirlwind surrounding her body was split by the invisible sword. Then Mok Jae-eun appeared before her. Thinking he was trying to stop her, she extended her hand infused with spirit energy to push him away, but Mok Jae-eun grabbed her wrist as if snatching it, pulled her close and said firmly, I'm sorry, but I can't let you go. You're already my life, Chong Ryong. Chapter 427, Soul and Spirit 5. I'm sorry, but I can't let you go. You're already my life, Chong Ryong. The moment she heard Mok Jae-eun's words, Chong Ryong's dark red eyes briefly returned to normal, if only for an instant. However, it didn't last long. When the connection was intact, she often resonated with Mok Jae-eun's emotions. While their time together played a part, the influence of their connection couldn't be ignored. But because Chong Ryong's very existence was formed from resentment, from the moment the connection was severed, even if she wavered emotionally for a moment, her inherent nature as a vengeful spirit was bound to intensify. Yo! Chong Ryong gritted her teeth, holding back her heart that almost wavered for a moment. Then she shook off Mok Jae-eun's hand, gripping her wrist with all her might. At her cold rejection, Mok Jae-eun's eyes trembled slightly, though barely noticeable. Seeing this, Chong Ryong recalled what the society leader had said. The northern edge of Shaanxi province, where there are ruins of a collapsed fortress. Are you certain the sorcery to unite soul and spirit is there? Fuff. The Ghost Blade has been searching for traces of the old martial world where alchemy was long practiced. Though it was right under our noses, we didn't expect it to be there, but it should be certain. Without the alchemy, Bai Yonghyun couldn't achieve what he wanted. Then naturally she could draw him out using this as bait without needing to find him. Finally, she could settle things with him. The moment to end this long grudge was not far off. Then the society leader spoke. But you should hurry. They too have dug close to those traces. I'll do so without you urging me. Puff, puff. And there's one more thing to be cautious about. What should I be cautious of? Ryusoul. I understand your grudge is deeper than anything else, but this fight is absolutely disadvantageous to you. No. Not anymore. Though she was angry, she wasn't alone. She had tried to fight alone, but there was a reliable ally by her side. Mortal. With him she felt she could overcome anything. His potential had surpassed her expectations and he had overcome numerous adversities. And there's nothing particularly disadvantageous. Even if he's obtained a body containing the soul, he can't achieve what he wants unless the other two conditions are met. Chong Ryong thought that if she used this situation, they could gain an even more advantageous position. But then, that's not what the society leader means. Grand Divination Master Myung Ryul, trapped by the blood, interjected cautiously. She asked curiously, "What are you trying to say?" To her question, Grand Divination Master Myung Ryul hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Why So-yun, or rather the body containing your soul, may be in its last life." "What are you talking about? The body containing the soul is in its last life?" It was hard to understand what he meant. As I mentioned earlier, the soul ascends to heaven and goes through a purification process by passing through the celestial gate. But your soul has been forcibly placed into wombs and reincarnated for 100 years without going through that process. What's your point? Is there something else besides being born imperfectly? It's not just the physical body that deteriorates. What? The soul too will deteriorate if it doesn't undergo purification, and eventually it will cease to exist. Chong Ryong's expression hardened at Grand Divination Master Myung Ryul's meaningful words. What could it mean for the soul to cease to exist? Wasn't the soul originally one with the spirit? If one of them, the soul, disappears, does that mean something will happen to me, the spirit, as well? To her, at a loss for words, Grand Divination Master Myung Ryul spoke as if regretful. If the soul completely ceases to exist instead of ascending to heaven, you, the spirit, will also cease to exist. Because the soul and spirit are born with one fate. For a moment, Chong Ryong seemed shocked and didn't know what to do. If the soul ceases to exist, she too will completely cease to exist? Doesn't that mean there will be no afterlife, nothing at all? Literally meant the end of existence. If the soul ceases to exist, the spirit dies. If the soul ceases to exist. Chong Ryong's mind became complex. She had thought that everything would end once she resolved the grudge she had built up for 100 years and stopped his madness and obsession. But this drip. Tears of blood flowed from her eyes. It's too cruel. Beyond anger, Chong Ryong could only shed bloody tears and sigh at the frustration of everything seeming blocked. Although he had taken everything precious from her, she thought she could escape this cycle if she just took her revenge, but he was pushing her to the edge until the very end. If Bai Yonghyun were to come out in desperation at the last moment and kill Wai So-yun, who had her soul, everything would be in vain. She looked at her trembling palm. For a moment his image and Mok Jae-youngun's flashed by simultaneously. "You are beautiful. So beautiful, like a single red peony. I can't help that I've already come to like you." Clench. Chong Ryong bit her lip hard. If her grudge is resolved and she leaves this world, could she meet him again? Would it be good to give up everything and be with the mortal? He had thought many things. But all of that was in vain. If he doesn't get what he wants and thinks the game is up, he will eventually make an extreme choice. If that happens, mortal. She would cease to exist before him. She wasn't afraid of death or ceasing to exist. She had long since transcended such things. But what would happen to Mok Jae-youngun after she ceased to exist? Drip. Would she never be able to see him again? That was too frightening and sad. Chong Ryong clutched her chest and bent over. It was too painful. Is it a predetermined tragedy no matter what I do? In the end he would make that choice and she would cease to exist. No matter how many strategies she thought of, she couldn't find a clear answer. The ending was the same. Now she understood why he went to such lengths to take Wai So-yun away. If Wai So-yun were in their hands it would be different, but if she fell into his hands he would hold the final card. By Hyun. She was at a loss for words at his madness and obsession. What should she do? If the ending was the worst no matter which path she took, the only choice left for her was to choose the lesser evil. The only move that came to her mind was one. It was to resolve the situation by herself alone. Draw him in with the alchemy and end all of this together. That was the only answer. Could be said to be an ending where they would perish together. Clench. Mortal. She couldn't drag Mok Jae-youngun into this path of carnage. If Mok Jae-youngun were with her, it would provoke him even more, and in the worst case she might cease to exist in front of him before even taking her revenge. If she showed such a sight before him it would be too tragic. I must cut ties. Only then could she end it as just her own tragedy. She couldn't bear to see him grieve over losing someone again. Chang Ryong then looked at Grand Divination Master Myung Ryul and the society leader. He will try to help somehow. Then she had to block that in advance. If she killed them, the only ones who knew about the ghost blade's whereabouts and this secret, even he would have no choice. Then Chang Ryong approached them, revealing her killing intent. I'm sorry, but I can't let you go. You're already my life, Chang Ryong. Though she wavered momentarily at Mok Jae-un's sincere words, she soon cut off all her emotions with resentment and anger. I'm not. Don't lie. You're wavering, aren't you? It's not a lie. If I hadn't been bound by the connection, I would have left you long ago. To me, you were just a tool for revenge. That's not. No, it is. The man I loved no longer exists in this world. You can never replace him. At those cold words, Mok Jae-un's eyes wavered. For the first time, Chang Ryong read the change in Mok Jae-un's emotions and her heart surged. But she had no choice. She had to detach him emotionally as well to resolve the situation alone. I'm sorry, mortal. Swallowing her bitterness forcibly, Chang Ryong concentrated all the spirit energy of the blood realm of the ghost domain and fired numerous swords made of blood towards Mok Jae-un. Swish 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 swish. Chang Ryong. While cutting through the swords flying at incredible speed with his invisible sword, Mok Jae-un tried to grab her, but swish. The blood whirlwind surrounding her suddenly shrank and then disappeared. Chang Ryong, who had surpassed even the purple spirit level, disappeared as if blending with her surroundings when she attempted to escape in earnest, making it difficult to find her. Rustle. Eventually, the blood that had filled the surroundings disappeared. The blood realm had been dispelled. Mok Jae-un, who was about to open his chi sense and unleash all his eye power, stopped. Rationally, he felt he should catch her, but strangely he couldn't do it seeing her trying to push him away continuously. What made her forcibly push him away? There must be something. But with all of them dead, it was difficult to guess what had happened. If they were alive, maybe something. Flinch. Mok Jae-un turned his head somewhere. He saw a man and a woman collapsed in a corner. They were Na Yul-riang, the society leader's first disciple and chief disciple, and Mo Yak, his loyal subordinate and the woman he cherished most. As Mok Jae-un looked at them, his eyes narrowed, then, Suk. He reached out to one of them. It was Mo Yak. The moment Mok Jae-un made a gesture of pulling, her body rose up on its own and was sucked into Mok Jae-un's hand. Grabbing her neck, Mok Jae-un whispered in her ear. Why are you pretending to be unconscious when your acupoints have been unsealed? Gulp. Caught off guard, Mo Yak unconsciously swallowed dry saliva. In a deep valley about 30 li east of the Heaven and Earth Society's main compound, there a group of masked people were catching their breath. One of the masked figures was carrying a backpack, on which something that looked like a coffin was loaded. One masked person tapped the coffin with their hand and muttered, "She won't wake up, right?" To this question, the masked person carrying the backpack on their shoulders answered. They said she'd be in a state of suspended animation for 2 weeks, so she won't wake up for a while. If it seems otherwise, we can just keep applying acupoint seals periodically, so what's the problem? I guess so. The masked person who seemed to be the leader approached them and said, "Enough chatter. We're leaving now." At this, the masked people stood up with regretful looks in their eyes. As they stood up, someone somewhere was pondering this situation. That somewhere was inside the coffin. The being who should have been in a state of suspended animation inside the coffin opened their eyes wide. That being was Wai So-yun, or more accurately, guard Go-chan, who had possessed Wai So-yun. Go-chan clicked his tongue as if in a difficult situation. I managed to succeed in possession because of the suspended animation, but what do I do now? Chapter 428. Political Situation 1. It was merely a coincidence that occurred quite fortuitously. A body. Isn't there any body I can enter? Guard Go-chan, who could no longer possess the body of young Master Jang Nung-ak in the midst of the fierce battlefield, was desperately trying to find a new body. But there was a problem here. Because the battlefield was so intense, the only available bodies were either on the brink of death or already dead. Entering such corpses would be meaningless. Moreover, although he was a vengeful spirit, he had been forcibly made so by Mok Jae-un's technique, so his rank was low, and he had so little experience that he had never possessed a body on his own before. Therefore, rather than entering a body that would cause unnecessary trouble, he wanted to carefully choose a body with both good social status and martial prowess, like Jang Nung-a case. However, finding such a body in the midst of a battlefield where people were killing each other was not an easy task. Would that one be good enough? It looked like a great hall master of the sect. He had just lost a battle and was on the verge of death, but the condition of his body wasn't too bad. So he entered this body, but you were still alive. I'll make sure to kill you this time. Wait. Twack. Kek. As soon as he entered, he was attacked by a nearby enemy and the body died with its neck cut. It was absurd. Who could have predicted that he would die immediately after entering? So he entered another body that seemed relatively intact and usable, but... What? Weren't you dead? Wait. Puk. Why they start? I'm trying to speak. Ku. Once again, as soon as he entered, the body died with its heart pierced before he could even recover. If he had been of a higher rank, he might have been able to freely control the body and quickly induce recovery, but it was too much for Go-chan. Damn it. Should I try targeting an enemy instead? However, die. Kek. This was a repetition of the same situation, regardless of whether it was an enemy or an ally. After losing his life about 3 times in this manner, Go-chan judged that it was practically impossible to possess a new body on the battlefield. So he thought he should get any body from a safe place away from the battlefield. Go-chan, who had learned that he could move upwards when in spirit form because his body was light, rose up and looked for a suitable place, when, he saw a group of masked individuals gathered at a certain point, even though most of the forces, including the enemy, were gathered in the main square of the sect. Go-chan was about to ignore them given the situation, but he discovered someone unconscious among the masked individuals. She was none other than Wai So-yun. It was undoubtedly Wai So-yun, the youngest disciple of the society leader. He had certainly heard that the master had sent someone to protect her. But why was she in that state? Go-chan pondered for a moment. After considering whether to find a body or follow them, his choice was the latter. It feels like I might suffer again, but I smell the scent of merit. So thanks to her being in this unconscious state, he easily entered Wai So-yun's body, but what should I do now? Suk. First, touching this coffin, it feels sturdier than expected. I don't know what it's made of, but it doesn't seem like it would break with moderate force. And each of these masked individuals was no ordinary expert. Judging by the speed of their lightness skills, each one was at least a peak expert, and especially their leader had reached the extreme of the supreme realm. Even though Wai So-yun's body is strong, it might be difficult to face them head-on alone. It seemed he should look for an opportunity to escape. Master. Parururu. Master. Parururu. He had been taught by Mok Jae-yong how to communicate as a food spirit. So he was deliberately transmitting his thoughts with trembling to indicate his location through the connection, but it seemed he hadn't noticed yet. Surely this coffin isn't made with some kind of spell, is it? Unfortunately, Go-chan's guess was correct. Although he had hurriedly entered the coffin with Wai So-yun, he hadn't noticed that special talismans were attached to every gap in the coffin. Point. Mok Jae-yong remembered the Heaven and Earth Society leader's last silent, desperate cry before his neck was broken by Chong Ryong's hand. He had clearly tried to tell him something, and it was about acupoints. Why was that? Now he seemed to understand its meaning. Kek. Mok Jae-yong grabbed the throat of Mo Yak, young Master Na Yulriang's confidant, and said, "Why are you pretending to be unconscious when your acupoints have been unsealed?" Suk. Kek what are you doing? As Mok Jae-yong moved his hand towards her chest, she couldn't hide her bewilderment. However, with her neck gripped and unable to move her body at all, there was nothing she could do. Mok Jae-yong, who had placed his hand in the center of her chest, said expressionlessly, "What an unusual acupoint technique." Paralysis points to prevent body movement and fainting points had been sealed, but the method of sealing the fainting points was different from the usual. It seemed they were set to unseal slowly so that even those sensitive to energy wouldn't notice, allowing only consciousness to return. In conclusion, this was done deliberately. Mok Jae-yong's eyes narrowed. It was intentional. Did they anticipate a situation where they might have to kill themselves? Mok Jae-yong looked at the corpse of the Heaven and Earth Society leader, who had died with a broken neck. Despite dying like that, there was no trace of resentment or suffering on his face and in his eyes. As if he had willingly accepted it. Did he try to do something until the end, even though it had become a situation he couldn't control? Why? It doesn't make sense. This person clearly inherited the blood of Bai Yonghian of the Heaven Vein. Then why is he trying to walk a path so opposed to him? Anyway, this woman knows the answer to why Chong Ryong left alone, rejecting him. Speak. What conversation took place? You're not going to spout nonsense about not hearing, are you? My current mood is not one I want to ask anyone twice about. Although her body was paralyzed and she couldn't move due to the sealed acupoints, Mo Yak couldn't easily open her lips due to the chilling sensation that ran down her spine. She was already aware of how strong this monster was and knew there was nothing she could do. However, Mo Yak's gaze turned towards the unconscious young master Na Yelriang. Looking at him, she then spoke with eyes full of determination as if ready to throw away her life. If you promise, in public, to spare the young master's life, I'll speak. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then kill me. At her words without hesitation, one of Mok Jiongun's eyebrows raised slightly. This woman is also one of those types of people. The type who can throw away their own life for others without hesitation. I see. A tone as if resigned. At this, she thought Mok Jiongun had accepted her deal. If one recalled the conversation he had just had with that vengeful spirit, that being seemed quite precious to him. Mo Yak exhaled in relief. It was no different from gambling, but it was truly fortunate. If you promise, in front of everyone. Before Mo Yak could finish speaking, Mok Jiongun made a light gesture, and the unconscious body of young master Na Yelriang slowly rose. Mo Yak cried out in shock. What are you dash? Quack. As Mok Jion made a gesture of clenching his hand. Pusuk. Na Yelriang's entire body tightened and blood burst out from various places. Kek. If you try to be clever and filter something in your mind while talking, I'll burst him and kill him like this. Kwai. Na Yelriang's skin began to twist and tear. He hadn't regained consciousness despite this happening. Perhaps because no special acupoint technique had been used on him. This guy is an evil spirit. The gentle voice he had used when talking with that vengeful spirit was nowhere to be seen, and he was now cruelty and coldness incarnate. It was hard to believe it was the same person. Mo Yak, suffering with bloodshot eyes, finally cried out. Stop. He tell everything. In the end she surrendered. So Wai So-yun is the soul, Hun. And Chong Ryong is the spirit, Beck, containing the resentment. Mok Jiongun, who had learned through Mo Yak what had happened inside, let out a faint sigh. He had thought there must be some reason, and now he finally had the answer. It was the choice made by her, who considered the situation to be as unfavorable as possible at the point when Wai So-yun was taken by 3. To bear all the karma alone. She deliberately cut off her emotions. It truly wasn't that she had used him as a tool for revenge. It was to push him away ruthlessly so as not to hurt him, because it could become a fight that couldn't be won in any way. Quack. Mok Jiongun's fist clenched. Upon learning her true intentions, Mok Jiongun realized what was immediately important. The urgent priority was to recover Wai So-yun, who had been kidnapped by them, and to prevent Chong Ryong from going alone to that place where there was said to be an alchemy to unite the Hun and Beck. He had to hurry. I need to find Wai So-yun first. Having determined the order of what needed to be done, Mok Jiongun immediately went outside the building. But the moment he came out, a thunderous cheer erupted. Wah-ah-ah. It was a massive cheer that made heaven and earth shake. With the leaders subdued, the battlefield could already be considered their victory. The society members who had killed and subdued all the enemies couldn't help but shout cheers of excitement when Mok Jiongun, who would become the new master of the Heaven and Earth Society, appeared. Pat. Numerous executives approached Mok Jiongun's side. The axe-destroying King Ho Taegang, the Shadow Clan Master Huan Yisian Sip Chun, the demon-subduing Fist Master and Mad Monk Jajiam Zhong, the masked Ma Arihayan and other key confidants were all safe, although they had suffered some injuries. Kung. Among these executives, the axe-destroying King Ho Taegang knelt on one knee before Mok Jiongun, clasped his hands in respect and shouted loudly. We congratulate you on the victory, my lord. Kung. The executives and all those who had been cheering likewise paid their respects to Mok Jiongun and shouted. We congratulate you on the victory. As thousands of society members shouted, the entire square seemed about to lift off. Seeing these people excited and elated by the victory, Mok Jiongun's footsteps, which were about to leave the Heaven and Earth Society immediately for his purpose, became heavy. He had been thinking only of recovering Wei So-yun and Chong Ryong. Mok Jiongun, who had been looking at the majestic scene of numerous people paying their respects and looking up to him, was about to take a step. Now is not the time to celebrate this or do anything else. They've won anyway, so even if he leaves right away, it shouldn't be a big problem. Long ago I wanted to become a great master and founding patriarch leading a new world. For a moment, Chong Ryong's words echoed in his mind, and his footsteps faltered. Why are her words coming to mind at this moment of all times? Isn't that not what's important right now? Become a great master who embraces everyone. Quack. Her voice resounded so clearly in his mind that Mok Jiongun's clenched fist tightened. Chong Ryong's earnest wish. Recalling this, he couldn't carelessly disregard everything. At this, Mok Jiongun, facing all the society members looking up to him, Chong drew his sword and raised it as if to imprint the joy of victory. At that moment, another thunderous cheer erupted. Wah-ah-ah. Faced with the surging heat of the crowd, Mok Jiongun was caught in a strange emotion for the first time in his life.